Hi everybody. It's great to see you guys. Today we'll be reciting the not Heart Sutra. It's close to my heart, but it's not quite the Heart Sutra. It's the Diamond Sutra, and it is a part of the greater Prajna Paramita literature, perfection of wisdom literature. It just explains it in a different way than the Heart Sutra does, and you know, even though it talks about emptiness in a way that kind of breaks our brains, it really, at the outset, it reminds us that compassion and love is the motivation to realize emptiness, to realize liberation, not just for our own sakes, but for everyone else's sakes as well, whether we know them or not, right? Whether they're alive or dead, whether, they're in this world or other worlds, really expanding and broadening our minds to encompass everything that we see with love and wisdom is what the Diamond Sutra is talking about. And the reason why I chose that we will recite it today is because we're in the holy month of Sakadawa. And tomorrow will be Buddha's birthday, Buddha's enlightenment day, and his death day. Kind of crazy that all happened in the same day, and so it feels like an auspicious occasion for us Buddhist practitioners in order to be able to still receive the Dharma, have a community that practices, and to really orient our lives towards love and compassion. And the wisdom that realizes that we're all interdependent, because without that interdependence, like, there would be no way to express love. There'd be no way to experience joy and pain, it's both good and bad. But I don't know what I'm saying at this point. So I think this is a good place to start with Refuge and Bodhicitta on page 5 in the prayer book. And we'll say each prayer, so prayer of refuge and bodhicitta and 4 immeasurable thoughts, twice in English and once in Tibetan. And as we do so, let's really feel ourselves like come into contact not with just the external Buddhas, our teachers, our external Sangha, right? And the external Dharma, right? So like the Shakyamuni Buddha, who's not here anymore, our teachers who are separate from us, texts that we may read, we may not read, and people like ourselves that we come across occasionally. But our inner Buddha, which is our intrinsic mind of love and wisdom that has always been here, that's never gone away despite our neuroses and our problems. Like, we could always trust that we're all good. That's the inner Buddha. Inner Dharma is our ability to understand karma, cause and effect, interdependence, that we're not alone, and that our actions have consequences, and that, there are things to adopt, virtuous qualities, wholesome actions, skillful actions, of body, speech, and mind, and things to reject, unwholesome actions, unskillful acts of body, speech, and mind that don't align with love. And our inner Sangha, which is, all the little critters abiding in our body, all the causes and conditions that bring us into this world, our inner Sangha, and really having love for everybody. That's a crucial part of this Diamond Sutra, because it's going to sound like it's preoccupied with the wisdom aspect, but in the beginning it just says, like, without compassion, like, there's no way to understand what the Diamond Sutra is talking about. And so the 4 measurable thoughts are really crucial for this, because it helps us to expand our minds and to break down the barriers that we've imposed upon ourselves. At least I could speak with my own limited experience on this regard. So without further ado, I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by practicing giving and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje chedang sokji jognamla Jangju maradu dagni japsuchi Dagi jinsokji besonamji Drola panjir sanje drubarasho. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Samje damje dewadang dewe judang den baraju jig Samje damje dugnadang dugna judang del waraju jig Samje damje dugna mebe dewadang midrel waraju jig Samje damje nyering jagdang nidang drelwe dang nyom lane baraju jig. So the Diamond Sutra. It's quite a central one, and so it's really nice to be able to have such easy access to these texts online. How many thousands of years have passed since the Buddha taught these words in Shravasti, and yet we still have access to it. Granted, it's like we're playing telephone, you know, because this was probably spoken in Pali, written down in Sanskrit, translated into Chinese or Tibetan, depending on which translation we're working with. This is probably working off of a Chinese version, if I were to guess, and then translated into English. And so a lot of gradations of meaning get lost, and yet we're still able to bear witness to a really profound teaching, regardless of that game of telephone. And the Buddha kind of pokes fun at that notion that there is a teaching to get, that there is liberation to be had, that there is something to gain or something to lose from our practice. It's real. This text is really honored because I think it gives us permission to do less, to think less, to not try to figure anything out, to be in a state of not knowing, to be in a place of no place, of really allowing ourselves to let go of everything. And what's left when there's nothing? It's not nothing. It's something that goes beyond something or nothing, And this sutra continuously tries to break the mind that tries to make something out of nothing and nothing from something. It's really hard to put into words. And the Buddha even says so himself multiple times in this text. If you try to see me, if you try to put my teaching into words, you're missing the point. Because what I'm teaching goes beyond words and forms. It's the nature of our mind. We could experience it, we could know it, but not in the ways in which we're used to, with words, with conventions, with habit patterns, with forms, with feelings, sensations, perceptions, and our thoughts, And nevertheless, they're still part of it, which is why the Buddha could speak about such things with one of his foremost disciples, Subhuti, who was the foremost in realizing emptiness in his early Sangha. There is a story about the Buddha coming down from the heaven of the 33, and everyone was excited. Who wouldn't be excited for the Buddha to come back? Even if you were just a regular old Joe Schmo and the Buddha left your village like a year ago and he came back to it, you'd be pretty excited and want to see him, right? But at that point, Subhuti was meditating in a cave, and because of his super abilities, he was able to perceive that the Buddha was coming back. And he thought to himself, like, I should go back, I should see the Buddha. It's pretty cool that he's coming back. But then he had another thought, like, no, I don't need to see the Buddha because I'm already seeing the Buddha and what he taught. I'm already taking refuge in my practice and in my ability to help beings. So there's no need to go see the Buddha. There never was a Buddha other than my own mind. And so in that way, the Buddha commended Subhuti to the king who went to see the Buddha, because the king asked him, like, who got the greatest merit by seeing you today? I brought so many gifts, so much retinue, so much fanfare for you. And the Buddha was like, well, in terms of generosity, that's you, but in terms of the greatest merit possible, it's Subhuti, because he's abiding in the nature of my Dharma. He's abiding in the nature of my mind, Buddha minds, which is all of our minds. And so with that, we'll start reciting the sutra with what sounds like a leaf blower going outside. But I want to preface this with saying that it's quite a long one. It's 15 pages long. So if you don't feel like reciting the whole thing, that's totally fine. It's not a requirement. I'm not pointing a gun at you guys. But, I think as we recite, or if you choose to meditate with the text, to try to let go of our standard way of understanding things, to be okay with not knowing who you are, what you need to do, what you need to be later on, what you were in the past. because that's what this sutra is really talking about. The nature of things is inconceivable and unfathomable. And so why do you need to fathom it at all? It causes a lot more problems than it does create solutions for us. Just as individuals, And so in order to give ourselves that space of not knowing, of being aware of our not knowing, and allowing our regular thoughts, emotions, perceptions to sway like trees in a breeze or like clouds in the sky that come and go. That's a way to be with this text, at least with my dog understanding. And so, let's just take a moment to place ourselves into the place of this text. Our imaginations are really powerful. They kind of create our world as it is. And so if you're able to, just imagine that we're in a vibrant grove full of trees. And it's a warm day, and yet there's still a nice cool breeze. And in this grove, the Buddha is there, sitting on a seat. And so are his disciples of monks and bodhisattvas. And as we recite this text, we become a part of the audience and the speakers of the text. We are the Buddha. We are Subhuti. We are the trees in the grove. We're the meal that the Buddha eats. We're the audience listening to the teachings. And so feel free to stay in meditation or recite the words along with me. Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha was staying at Anathapindika's garden in Jeta Grove in the city of Shravasti. With him was a large gathering of 1,250 monks and bodhisattva mahasattvas. Early in the morning, when the mealtime came, the Buddha put on his robe and, holding his bowl, entered the great city of Shravasti, where he begged for food. Having finished begging from door to door, he came back to his own seat in the garden and took his meal. When this was done, he put away his robe and bowl, washed his feet, spread his seat, and sat down, mindfully fixing his attention in front of him. Then the Venerable Subhuti, who was among the assembly, rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, set his right knee on the ground, and respectfully, folding his hands, addressed the Buddha thus: "It is wonderful, world-honored one, that the Tathagata thinks so much of all the bodhisattvas and instructs them so well. World-honored one, in the case of a son or daughter of good family, who arouses the thought for supreme awakening? How should they abide in it, and how should they keep their thoughts under control?" The Buddha replied, "Well said indeed, O Subhuti. Just as you say, the Tathagata thinks very much of all the bodhisattvas and instructs them well. But now listen attentively, and I will tell you how those who have set out on the bodhisattva path should abide in it, and how they should keep their thoughts under control." "So be it, world-honored one. I wish to listen to you." The Buddha said to Subhuti, "All the bodhisattva mahasattvas who undertake the practice of meditation should cherish one thought only: when I attain perfect wisdom, I will liberate all sentient beings in every realm of the universe, whether they be egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, or miraculously born, those with form, those without form, those with perception, those without perception, and those with neither perception nor non-perception. So long as any form of being is conceived, I must allow it to pass into the eternal peace of nirvana, into that realm of nirvana that leaves nothing behind, and to attain final awakening. And yet, although immeasurable, innumerable, and unlimited beings have been liberated, truly no being has been liberated. Why? Because no bodhisattva who is a true bodhisattva entertains such concepts as a self, a person, a being, or a living soul. Thus, there are no sentient beings to be liberated, and no self to attain perfect wisdom. Furthermore, Subhuti, in the practice of generosity, a bodhisattva should be unsupported. He or she should practice generosity without regard to sight, sound, touch, flavor, smell, or any thought that arises in it. Subhuti, thus should the bodhisattva practice generosity without being supported by any notion of a sign. Why? When the bodhisattva practices generosity without being supported by any notion of a sign, his or her merit will be beyond conception. Subhuti, what do you think? Can you measure the space extending eastward? No, world-honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, can you measure the space extending toward the south, or west, or north, or above, or below? No, world-honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, so it is with the merit of a bodhisattva who practices generosity without cherishing any notion of a sign. It is beyond measure like space. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should persevere one-pointedly in this instruction. Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to recognize the Tathagata by means of bodily marks? No, world-honored one. And why? When the Tathagata speaks of the bodily marks, he speaks of the no possession of no marks. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is an illusory existence. When the illusory nature of form is perceived, the Tathagata is recognized. Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, in times to come will there be beings who, when they hear these teachings, have real faith and confidence in them? The Buddha said, Subhuti, do not utter such words. 500 years after the passing of the Tathagata, there will be beings who, having practiced the rules of morality and thus being possessed of merit, happen to hear of these statements and will understand their truth. Such beings, you should know, have planted their root of merit not only under 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 Buddhas, but under countless Buddhas. When such beings, upon hearing these statements, arouse even one moment of pure and clear confidence, the Tathagata will see them and recognize their immeasurable amount of merit. Why? Because all these beings are free from the idea of a self, person, being, or living soul. And they are free from the idea of a dharma as well as a no dharma. Why? Because if they cherish the idea of a dharma, they are still attached to a self, person, being, or living soul. If they cherish the idea of no dharma, they are attached to a self, person, being, or living soul. Therefore, do not cherish the idea of a dharma, nor that of a no dharma. For this reason, the Tathagata always preaches thus, O you bhikshus, know that my teaching is to be likened unto a raft. Even a dharma is cast aside, much more a no dharma. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained supreme awakening? Has he something he can preach? Subhuti said, world-honored one, as I understand the teaching of the Buddha has no doctrine to convey. The truth is ungraspable and inexpressible. It neither is nor is not. How is it so? Because all noble teachers are exalted by the unconditioned. Subhuti, what do you think? If a son or daughter of a good family should fill the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious treasures and give them all as a gift to the Tathagatas, would not the merit thus obtained be great? Subhuti said, very great indeed, world-honored one. Why? Because their merit is characterized with the quality of not being merit. Therefore, the Tathagata speaks of the merit as being great. The Buddha, if there is a person who, memorizing even 4 lines from this sutra, preaches it to others, his merit will be superior to the one just mentioned. Why? Because, Subhuti, all the Buddhas and their supreme awakening issue from the sutra. Subhuti, what is known as the teaching of the Buddha is not the teaching of the Buddha. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a Shrotapana think, I have obtained the fruit of a Shrotapati? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because while Shrotapana means entering the stream, there is no entering here. A true Shrotapana is one who does not enter sound, odor, flavor, touch, or any thought that arises. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a Sakritagamin think, I have obtained the fruit of a Sakritagamin? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because while Sakritagamin means coming and going and coming for once, one who understands that there is really no going and coming, he or she is a true Sakritagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Does an Anagamin think, I have obtained the fruit of an Anagamin? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because while Anagamin means not coming, there is really not no coming. Therefore, the one who realizes this is called an Anagamin. Subhuti, what do you think? Does an Arhat think, I have obtained Arhatship? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because there is no Dharma to be called Arhat. If, world-honored one, an Arhat thinks, I have obtained Arhatship, this means that he has the idea of an ego self, a person, a living being, or a soul. Although the Buddha has said that I am the foremost of those who have obtained Arana Samadhi, that I am the foremost of those Arhats who are liberated from unwholesome desires, world-honored one, I cherish no thought that I have obtained Arhatship. World-honored one, if I did, you would not have declared of me. Subhuti, who is the foremost of those who dwell in peaceful abiding, does not dwell anywhere. That is why he is called a dweller in peace. The Buddha asked Subhuti, what do you think? When the Tathagata practiced in ancient times under Dipankara Buddha, did he attain any dharma? No, world-honored one, he did not attain any dharma while practicing with the Dipankara Buddha. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a bodhisattva create any harmonious Buddha fields? No, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because to create a harmonious Buddha field is not to create a harmonious Buddha field, and therefore it is known as creating a harmonious Buddha field. So, Subhuti, all bodhisattvas should develop a pure, lucid mind that doesn't depend upon sight, sound, touch, flavor, smell, or any thought that arises in it. A bodhisattva should develop a mind that functions freely, without depending on anything whatsoever. The Buddha continued, Subhuti, what do you think? If someone were to have a body as large as Mount Sumuru, would not this body be very large? Subhuti said, very large indeed, world-honored one. Why? Because the Buddha teaches that that which is no body is known as a large body. Subhuti, what do you think? If there were as many Ganges rivers as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, would the number of grains of sand in all those rivers would be many? Subhuti said, very many indeed, world-honored one. Those Ganges rivers would indeed be very many, much more so than the grains of sand in them. Subhuti, what do you think? If there were a good man or woman who filled the 3,000 chiliocosms containing as many world systems as there are grains of sand in those Ganges rivers with the 7 precious treasures, and then gave them all away out of generosity, would not this merit be very great? Subhuti said, very great indeed, world-honored one. The Buddha said, I declare to you, Subhuti, if a good man or woman were to accept, practice, and explain even 4 lines of the sutra to others, such merit would be far greater than the preceding one. Moreover, Subhuti, wherever this sutra or even 4 lines of it are preached, that practice, that place, will be respected by all beings, including devas, asuras, etc., as if it were the Buddha's own shrine or chaitya. How much more worthy of respect the person who can memorize and recite the sutra for the benefit of others. Subhuti, you should know that such a person achieves the highest, foremost, and most wonderful blessing, Wherever this sutra is kept, the place is to be regarded as if the Buddha or a venerable disciple of his were present. At that time, Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, what will this sutra be called? How should we keep its teachings in mind?" The Buddha said to Subhuti, "This sutra will be called the Vajra Chetika Prajna Paramita, the diamond cutter wisdom that has gone beyond, because it has the capacity to cut through illusions and afflictions and bring us to the shore of awakening, and by this title you will know it." And why? The reason is, Subhuti, that what the Tathagata has called the Prajna Paramita, the highest transcendental wisdom, is not in fact the Prajna Paramita, and therefore it is called Prajna Paramita. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there any dharma that the Tathagata has taught? No, indeed, world-honored one, there is none. What do you think, Subhuti? Are there many dust particles in the 3,000 chiliocosms? Yes, very many indeed, world-honored one. Subhuti, the Tathagata teaches that what are called dust particles are not dust particles. That is why they are merely dust particles. And what the Tathagata calls chiliocosms are not chiliocosms. That is why they are merely chiliocosms. What do you think, Subhuti? Can the Tathagata be recognized through the 32 marks of a great man? No, world-honored one, he cannot be recognized through the 32 marks. And why? Because the Tathagata has taught that what are called the 32 marks are really no marks. Therefore, they are called the 32 marks. Subhuti, suppose a man or woman were to renounce all his or her belongings as many times as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges. The merit thus gained would not exceed that of one who, memorizing even one gatha of 4 lines of the sutra, preaches them to others. Venerable Subhuti, listening to this discourse through the shock of the doctrine, had a deep understanding of the meaning of the sutra and was moved to tears. He said to the Buddha, "It is wonderful indeed, world-honored one, how well the Tathagata has taught this discourse on Dharma. Through it, a new level of cognition has been produced in me. Never before have I heard such a discourse on Dharma. World-honored one, if someone hears this sutra and has pure and clear confidence in it, that person will gain true perception. And what is called true perception is indeed no perception. That this is what the Tathagata teaches as true perception. World-honored one, it is not difficult for me to have faith in, to understand, and to memorize this sutra, which I have just heard. But in the ages to come, in the next 500 years, if there are beings who, listening to this sutra, are able to believe, understand, and memorize it, they will indeed be most wonderful beings. In them, no perception of a self, person, being, or living soul will take place. And why? Because that which is perception of self is no perception. That which is perception of a being, person, or living soul is no perception. And why? Because the Buddhas have left all perceptions behind. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "It is just as you say. If there is a person who, listening to this sutra, is not frightened, alarmed, or disturbed, you should know him as a wonderful person. Why? Because what the Tathagata has taught as Parama Paramita, the highest perfection, is not the highest perfection, and is therefore called the highest perfection. Moreover, Subhuti, the teaching of the Tathagata on the perfection of patience is really no perfection, and therefore it is called the perfection of patience. Why? Subhuti, when in ancient times my body was cut to pieces by the king of Kalinga, I did not have the idea of a self, a person, a being, or a living soul. Why? When at that time my body was dismembered, limb after limb, joint after joint, feelings of anger and ill will would have arisen in me had I had the idea of a person, self, being, or living soul. With my super knowledge, I recall that in my past 500 lifetimes, I have led the life of a sage devoted to patience, and during those times, I did not have the idea of an ego, a person, a being, or a soul. Therefore, Subhuti, a bodhisattva detaching him or herself from all ideas, should rouse a desire for utmost, supreme, and perfect awakening. He or she should produce thoughts that are unsupported by forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, or mind objects, unsupported by Dharma, unsupported by no Dharma, unsupported by everything. And why? Because all supports are no supports. This is the reason why the Buddha teaches that a bodhisattva should practice generosity without dwelling on form. Subhuti, the reason he practices generosity is to benefit all beings. The Tathagata teaches that all dharmas, all ideas are no ideas, and that all beings are no beings. Subhuti, the Tathagata is one who speaks of things as they are, speaks what is true, and speaks in accordance with reality. He does not speak deceptively or to please people. Subhuti, in the Dharma attained by the Tathagata, there is neither truth nor falsehood. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva should practice generosity while still depending on form, he or she is like someone walking in the dark. He or she will not see anything. But when a bodhisattva practices generosity without depending on form, he or she is like someone with good eyesight walking in the bright sunshine. He or she can see all shapes and colors. Subhuti, if in times to come the sons and daughters of good families memorize and recite this sutra, they will be seen and recognized by the Tathagata with his Buddha knowledge, and they will acquire immeasurable and infinite merit. Furthermore, Subhuti, if one should renounce in the morning all one's belongings as many times as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges, and if one should do likewise at noon and in the evening and continue thus for countless ages, and if someone else, on hearing this discourse on Dharma, were to accept it with a believing heart, the merit acquired by the latter would far exceed that of the former. How much more the merit of one who would copy, memorize, learn, recite, and expound it for others? Subhuti, to sum up, immeasurable, innumerable, and incomprehensible is this discourse on Dharma. The Tathagata has taught it for the well-being of those who have set out in the most excellent vehicle. Those who take up this discourse on Dharma, bear it in mind, recite, study, and expound it in detail for others, will all be known to the Tathagata and recognized by him and acquire merit that is incomparable, measureless, and infinite. Such beings will share in the supreme awakening attained by the Tathagata. Why? Because, Subhuti, this discourse on the Dharma could not be understood by beings of inferior resolve, nor by those attached to the idea of a self, person, being, or living soul. Being so caught up, they are unable to hear, memorize, learn, recite, and expound this sutra. Moreover, Subhuti, the spot of earth where the sutra will be revealed, that spot of earth will be worthy of worship by the whole world with its gods, men, asuras, worthy of being saluted respectfully, worthy of being honored by circumambulation. That spot of earth will be like a shrine or temple. And yet, Subhuti, there will be some sons and daughters of good families who will be despised for their memorizing and reciting this sutra. It is due to their previous evil karma. The impure deeds that these beings have done in their former lives are liable to lead them into states of woe in this lifetime. But if they are not averse to being despised in the present life, whatever evil karma they produced in their previous lives will be destroyed, and they will be able to attain the awakening of a Buddha. Subhuti, with my super knowledge, I recall that in the past, even before I was with Dipankara Buddha, I made offerings and had been attendant to 84,000 multi-million Buddhas. But the merit I gained from that service is not 1/100th nor even 100th million of the merit of someone who, at the time of the collapse of the Dharma, memorizes, recites, and learns from this sutra and expounds it to others. It bears neither number, nor fraction, nor enumeration, nor similarity, nor comparison, nor resemblance. Moreover, Subhuti, the merit acquired by good men and women who, at the time of the collapse of the Dharma, memorize, recite, and learn the sutra will be so great that if I were to describe it in detail, some people would become suspicious and disbelieving, and their minds might become disoriented. Subhuti, you should know that the meaning of the sutra is beyond comprehension and discussion. Likewise, the fruit that results from receiving and practicing the sutra is beyond comprehension and discussion. At that time, the Venerable Subhuti said to the Buddha, "World-honored one, may I ask you again? If the sons and daughters of good family wish to arouse the thought of supreme enlightenment, how should they abide in it? How should they keep their thought under control? The Buddha replied, someone who has set out on the bodhisattva path should cherish one thought only. When I attain perfect wisdom, I will liberate all sentient beings in every realm of the universe, whether they be egg-born, womb-born, moisture-born, miraculously born, those with form, those without form, those with perception, those without perception, and those with neither perception nor non-perception. So long as any form of being is conceived, I must allow it to pass into the eternal peace of nirvana, into that realm of nirvana that leaves nothing behind, and to attain final awakening. And yet, although immeasurable, innumerable, and unlimited beings have been liberated, truly no being has been liberated. Why, Subhuti? Because if a bodhisattva entertains such thoughts as a self, a person, a being, or a living soul, he is not a true bodhisattva. Subhuti, in fact, there is no independently existing object of mind called the supreme perfect awakening. What do you think, Subhuti? In ancient times, when the Tathagata was living with Dipankara Buddha, did he attain anything called the supreme perfect awakening? No, world-honored one. According to what I understand, there is no attainment of anything called the supreme perfect awakening. The Buddha said, right you are. It is for this reason that the Dipankara Buddha then predicted of me, you, young Brahmin, will be in a future time a Tathagata, an Arhat, fully enlightened by the name of Shakyamuni. This prediction was made because there is, in fact, nothing that can be attained that is called the supreme perfect awakening. Why is this? Because, Subhuti, Tathagata is synonymous with true suchness, Tatata, of all dharmas. And if someone were to say, the Tathagata has fully known the utmost right and perfect liberation, he would be speaking falsely. Why? Because there is no dharma by which the Tathagata has fully known the utmost right and perfect awakening. And the dharma that the Tathagata has fully known and demonstrated is neither graspable nor elusive. Therefore, the Tathagata teaches, all dharmas are the Buddha's own and special dharmas. Why? All dharmas, Subhuti, have been taught by the Tathagata as no dharmas. Therefore, all dharmas expediently call the Buddha's own and special dharmas. Subhuti, a comparison can be made with the idea of a great human body. What the Tathagata calls a great body is in fact a no body. So it is, Subhuti, with the bodhisattvas. If a bodhisattva were to think, I will lead all beings to nirvana, he or she should not be considered a bodhisattva. Why? Because there is no such thing as a bodhi being, bodhisattva. It is because of this that the Tathagata teaches that all dharmas are without the notion of a self, person, being, or living soul. Subhuti, furthermore, if a bodhisattva were to say, I will create harmonious Buddha fields, he or she likewise should not be called a bodhi being. Why? The Tathagata has taught that the harmonious Buddha fields are not in fact harmonious Buddha fields. Such is merely a name. It is thus that he speaks of a truly harmonious Buddha field. Subhuti, a bodhisattva who thoroughly understands the principle of no self and no dharma as the true self and the true dharma, respectively, is to be considered an authentic bodhisattva. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata possess the human eye? Subhuti replied, yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata possess the divine eye? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata possess the Gnostic eye? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata possess the Prajna eye? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata possess the Buddha eye? Yes, world-honored one. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata taught about the grains of sand in the Ganges River? Yes, world-honored one, he has. Subhuti, what do you think? If there were as many Ganges rivers as there are grains of sand in the Ganges River, and if there were a Buddha land for each one of those grains of sand, would those Buddha lands be many? Yes, world-honored one, they would be many indeed. Subhuti, I declare to you that however many living beings there may be in all of these manifold Buddha lands, and though each one of them has numerous trends of thought, the Tathagata has known them all. How is it so? Because the Tathagata teaches that all trends of thought are actually not trends of thought, and that is why he calls them trends of thought. Why? Because the past mind cannot be gotten hold of, the future mind cannot be gotten hold of, and the present mind cannot be gotten hold of. What do you think, Subhuti? If a son or daughter of good family were to fill the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious treasures and then give them as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhats, the fully enlightened ones, would the merit of that act be great? Subhuti replied, Yes, it would be great, O Lord. The Buddha said, So it is, Subhuti, so it is. But if in reality there were such a thing as a great heap of merit, the Tathagata would not have spoken of it as a great heap of merit. Such is merely a name. It is because it is without a foundation that the Tathagata has spoken of it as a great heap of merit. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of his perfectly formed body? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. As I understand it, the Tathagata is not to be seen by means of his perfectly formed body. Why? Because the Tathagata has taught that what is called a perfectly formed body is not a perfectly formed body. Such is merely a name. Therefore, it is called a perfectly formed body. The Buddha asked further, What do you think, Subhuti? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of his possession of bodily marks? Subhuti replied, No, world-honored one. As I understand it, the Tathagata cannot be by means of his possession of the bodily marks. Why? Because the Tathagata has taught that what are called the bodily marks are not in fact bodily marks. Such is merely a name. Therefore, they are called bodily marks. The Buddha asked, What do you think, Subhuti? Does the Tathagata think, By me has Dharma been taught? Subhuti, whoever says that the Tathagata thinks this way slanders the Tathagata. He would misrepresent me by seizing on to what is not there. Why? The Tathagata has taught that in the teaching of the Dharma, there is no Dharma that can be pointed to as Dharma. Such is merely a name. That is why it is called the teaching of Dharma. Subhuti asked, World-honored one, will there be beings in the future, 500 years from now, at the time of the collapse of the Dharma, who will truly believe these teachings? Subhuti said, Subhuti, there are neither beings nor non-beings. Why? The Tathagata has taught that what are called beings are truly no beings. Such is merely a name. That is why the Tathagata has spoken of them as beings. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there any Dharma by means of which the Tathagata has understood perfect, unexcelled awakening? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. As I understand it, there is no Dharma by which the Tathagata has understood perfect, unexcelled awakening. The Buddha said, So it is, Subhuti, so it is. Not even the least trace of Dharma is to be found anywhere. Such is merely a name. That is why it is called the perfect, unexcelled, perfect awakening. Furthermore, Subhuti, the Dharma called the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi is at one with everything else. Nothing in it is at variance with anything else. That is why it is called the perfect, unexcelled awakening. It is self-identical through the absence of a self, a person, a being, or a living soul, and that is why it is fully known as the totality of all wholesome dharmas. And yet, Subhuti, no dharmas have been taught by the Tathagata. Such is merely a name. Thus they are called wholesome dharmas. Again, Subhuti, if a son or daughter of good family were to pile up the 7 precious treasures and the 3,000 chiliocosms and give them away as a gift, the merit resulting from such an act would be much less than that of someone who was to memorize but one stanza from this Vajrachatika Prajnaparamita and teach it to others. The merit of the latter would indeed be so great that no comparison could be made. Subhuti, you must not think that the Tathagata entertains the notion, I will bring all living beings to the shore of awakening. Why? Because in reality there are no beings who can be liberated by the Tathagata. To entertain the notion that there are beings who can be liberated would be to partake in the idea of a self, a person, a being, and living soul. The Tathagata has taught that one must not seize upon these notions, and yet foolish common people have seized upon them. Sabuti, though the Tathagata uses the words foolish common people, in reality there are no such people. Such is merely a name. That is why they are called foolish common people. Sabuti, what do you think? Is the Tathagata to be recognized by means of his possession of bodily marks? Sabuti replied, No, world-honored one. The Buddha said, If Sabuti, the Tathagata, could be recognized by means of his possession of bodily marks, then the Chakravartin also would be a Tathagata. Therefore, the Tathagata is not to be recognized by means of his possession of bodily marks. Sabuti said, As I understand the Tathagata's teaching, he is not to be recognized by means of his bodily marks. Then the Buddha uttered the following stanzas. Those who see me through my form, and those who heard me by my voice, false endeavors they engaged in. Me those people will not see. A Buddha is to be seen or known through the Dharma, and his guidance manifests from Dharma bodies. Yet the true nature of the Dharma cannot be understood, and no one can be conscious of it as an object. Sabuti, you should not think that the Tathagata has attained the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi by virtue of his possession of the 32 bodily marks. Why? Because the Tathagata could not have attained the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through possession of bodily marks alone. At the same time, Sabuti, no one should say that those who have set out on the path of the Bodhisattva need to see all dharmas in terms of their annihilation. I declare to you, Sabuti, that those who set out in the Bodhisattva yana do not entertain any notion of the annihilation of dharmas. Again, Sabuti, if a son or daughter of good family were to fill as many world systems as there are grains of sand in the river Ganges, with the 7 precious treasures, and give them as a gift to the Tathagatas, arhats, fully enlightened ones, and if, on the other hand, a bodhisattva were to gain the insight that all dharmas are empty and have no self-nature or essence of their own, his or her merit would be immeasurably and incalculably greater than that of the former. And why is that? Because bodhisattvas are immune to any rewards of merit. Sabuti asked, What does it mean, world-honored one, that the bodhisattvas are immune to rewards of merit? The Buddha said, The bodhisattva whose merit is great does not get caught in the desire for or idea of merit. She or he understands that such is merely a name. It is for this reason that the bodhisattva is immune to the rewards of merit. Whosoever says that the Tathagata comes or goes, stands, sits, or lies down does not understand the meaning of my teaching. Why? The Tathagata does not come from anywhere, nor does he depart to anywhere. Therefore he is called the Tathagata, Arhat, fully enlightened one. Sabuti, what do you think? If a son or daughter of good family were to grind as many world systems as there are particles of dust in the 3,000 chiliocosms, as finely as they can be ground with incalculable vigor, would that be an enormous collection of dust particles? Sabuti replied, Yes, world-honored one, it would indeed be an enormous collection. Why? If the dust particles had any real self-existence, the Tathagata would not have called them an enormous collection of dust particles. As I understand it, what the Tathagata calls a collection of dust particles is not in essence a collection of dust particles. Such is merely a name. It is for this reason that it is called a collection of dust particles. Moreover, what the Tathagata has taught as a system of 3,000 chiliocosms is in fact not a system of chiliocosms. That is why they are called chiliocosms. To consider the chiliocosms as real would be a case of seizing on a material object that is nothing but an assembly of dust particles. That is why it is called seizing on an object. The Buddha added, What is called seizing upon a material object is a matter of linguistic convention without factual content. It is not a dharma or a no dharma, and yet the foolish common people have seized upon it. Sabuti, what do you think? If someone were to say that the Tathagata has taught the view of a self, a person, being, or living soul, would the person have understood my meaning? Sabuti replied, No, world-honored one, such a person would not have understood the Tathagata. Why? What the Tathagata calls a self view, a person view, a being view, or a living soul view are not in essence a self view, a person view, a being view, or a living soul view. That is why they are called a self view, a person view, a being view, or a living soul view. The Buddha said, "It is in this manner, Subhuti, that someone who has set out on the Bodhisattva path should know all dharmas, see that all dharmas are like this, and should have confidence in the understanding of all dharmas without any conception of them. Subhuti, what the Tathagata has called a conception of dharmas is not a conception of dharmas. Such is merely a name. That is why it is called the conception of dharmas. Again, Subhuti, if a son or daughter of good family were to pile up the 7 precious treasures in all the 3,000 chiliocosms and give them away as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhats, and the fully enlightened ones, and on the other hand, if someone were to take but one stanza from this Vajrachatika Prajnaparamita and bear it in mind, teach it, recite and study it, and illuminate it in full detail for others, his or her merit would be much more immeasurable and incalculable than that of the former. And in what spirit would he or she illuminate it for others? Without being caught up in the appearances of things in themselves, but understanding the nature of things just as they are. Why? Because so you should view all of the fleeting worlds: a star at dawn, a bubble in the stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. When the Buddha had finished speaking, Venerable Subhuti, the monks and nuns, the pious laymen and women, the bodhisattvas, and the whole world with its gods, asuras, and gandharvas were filled with joy at the teaching, and taking it to heart, they went their separate ways. about you guys, but the sutra tickles my brain in a nice way. Are there any questions about it? Any points of discussion?
You say tickles.
Yeah.
The seeming contradictions for me hurt my brain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say contradictions, but itself.
Right.
I recognized, I think it was the reinforcement of the teaching. I think 4 times.
Yeah.
It was just returning back to the same thing. And then for me, the concept, that's just a name. It's just a name. The labels, we give to things that are so powerful. That's what stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, like regarding to that, the Buddha, upon becoming enlightened, was tempted by Mara, the king of gods, with various frightening and attractive visions in order to steer the Buddha away from, becoming the Buddha. But at the point that he wasn't affected by such things anymore, he said to Mara and himself that, the maker of the house shall be no more. I have torn down the walls and I am free. And what the sutra is talking about is that aspect of tearing down the walls of the house, which are the names and conventions that we give to things, because at some point, it was near the beginning of the sutra where the Buddha speaks about, can you measure the eastern space? Can you measure the space of all the directions? And by not being supported or dependent would be probably a better word on, conventions and names that shift according to context, that ultimately don't represent the objects of our mind or our senses very accurately. If we don't, if we aren't dependent on those things, then there could be no harm or gain, right? And the Buddha says so himself with being dismembered, right, by the king Kalinga. That kind of comes out of nowhere, right? But it's that aspect of no matter what I lose, no matter what I gain, it doesn't affect me, because ultimately there is nothing to lose and nothing to gain. That's just a convention that we use, without the societal context, especially with our capitalistic, materialistic worldview. What would there be? I always think about the First Nations people of the Americas, more so the northern nomadic, tribes. They weren't trying to gain something from the land, they weren't trying to take away something from each other or the land either. They were working in harmony with it, because there's nothing to build up. There was no skyscrapers back then. Any sort of monuments were natural spaces, that are naturally subject to decay, And so in that aspect, if you don't try to grasp onto anything, you could be as free as the sky. But we're so used to grasping, right? It's this is a stick. This is my iPad. That is laden with assumptions. iPad. What is iPad? It's a lot of things that are not iPad. It is poor Congolese people mining the silicone to make the chips out of this. It's various manufacturing processes in China or Taiwan. It's a multi-million-dollar corporation that was founded by several people, the hardware team. All these different causes and conditions come across to make this iPad what it is, that aren't iPad. And what is my? Right? What is the my? What is the me? What is the I? What is the you? Those are linguistic assumptions that we make on a daily basis that the Buddha is trying to point at And that's why he keeps like reiterating, like, can you see me by bodily marks? Can you, you know, if you were to give stuff away, would the merit be great? You know, it's like he's trying to break down those assumptions that we make with our language and the ways in which we take that for granted, and the ways in which we understand things. Because that is a contradiction to reality, the assumptions that we make. Because there's no way that we could understand it. There will never be a complete theory of anything, of everything, right? Mm-hmm. Like in mathematics, that's been proven to be true. In physics, like it's always an uphill battle, you know. Never mind every other field of knowledge, right? Sociology is ever evolving. And so everything that is here for us exists within a context. Even the teachings of the Buddha, you know, it's dependent on the language of English, and English is dependent on letters, on formations of grammar, right? If you take any one of these components away, you're not left with anything coherent. And so the words themselves are not words, because the words, the meaning of the words depends on everything else that are not the words. Our ability to read, our ability to understand words, you know, there's so much. But once we're able to, you know, free ourselves from these assumptions, you know, at one point, the Buddha likens it to being outside in a bright and sunny day where we could see all shapes and colors. It's not as if like everything disappears, right? Once we come into that realization of the way things are, because there are still things and they still are being, right? But we're able to expand and broaden our vision, you know? And that's really fantastic. I don't know if that was useful in any way.
No, it's useful, but at least to me, because when you talk, huh?
I was explain that.
No, I was just saying, as you talk, I think, and I try to grasp what you're saying and what we listen, and then at the same time, I'm thinking, all these atoms, you know, are just there's a lot of truly empty space in an atom that we're made of right now. Mm-hmm. And relative to one another is how we perceive one another.
Yeah.
And everything, only because there's this constant interaction, and it actually just blows my mind. But it helps that you know, when you describe it and then you touch on various things like math and the physics and how we grasp and try to learn. The more we learn, the more we find out we don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think he sums it up in words. He even uses the words linguistics and what we would say labels with names and stuff. Mm-hmm. Dharma, no Dharma, Buddha, no Buddha. There's just nothing.
Right.
There's just nothing. In reality, there's really almost nothing. It's amazing what we can create out of nothingness. And what you said at the very beginning, something from nothing, nothing from something. These are violations of the laws of physics that we understand them, and yet there they are.
Right. Yeah, and then the Buddha at some point cautions against nihilism.
That's very too easy.
And it's just like a couple of sentences that he throws in there, like Subhuti, let it be known that a bodhisattva should not see things in terms of their annihilation, because that's worse. We're worse off when we're nihilistic. You know, it's in another sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra, the Buddha says it's better to have a view of self as big as the universe than it is to have a view of nihilism. Because at least with a view of self, like there's a possibility of ethics, there's a possibility of being a good person, there's a possibility of knowledge and of wisdom. But in terms of nihilism, like, oh, it's so pernicious, and we like that's a pitfall of our days, you know.
It's too easy, you know. Sometimes I've come to it, I'm like, you know, because it's not. I'm on the verge of nihilism, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are, you know, like there's information overload. There's wars abound. There's genocide. There's people dying from Ebola. There's hantavirus. There's all these different catastrophes and crises. And so it's like really hard to face that and bear witness to it. You know, as the Buddha says, like in the beginning and in the middle, when Subhuti asks, "Can I ask again? Like, how are bodhisattvas like? How are they gonna abide in bodhicitta, in the mind of awakening?" And the Buddha says so beautifully, like, "I will liberate all beings in all worlds, no matter how they are conceived," right? And then he goes on to like, you know, like on the surface contradict that. But I think that sentiment of like bearing witness to the suffering of the world is really important. Like that is what makes the path of liberation worthwhile. You know, because otherwise, what are we doing it for?
That's a good question.
Like, why would we even read a text that breaks our brains if we didn't care about like liberating ourselves and others from suffering? You know, and this is a tale as old as time. You know, of killing each other, of raping each other, of wanting money, of wanting fame, of wanting pleasure, of avoiding pain. And, you know, the world has continued to try to do the same things with that over and over again, falling for the same tricks over and over again. The more money I get, the more happy I'll be. If I have a house and a beautiful husband and a dog and a couple of children, I'll be really happy. But then what's the context of that? What are the values? What are the ethics of that? You know, how does it affect my environment? You know, how does it affect my community? Who knows?
I think the opposite of that is also true. What if I don't have all that? What if I give all that up? I will be happy. I think that's another path down to the same place. So you say, well, if I have this and I have that, then I'll be happy. Or if I say, well, if I don't have all that, then I'll be happy. I wonder if that's also a trap.
It could be.
Right? Because you go in opposite directions, and a lot of times we think of things in the material world, materialistic. Well, you know, house and things and that.
Yeah.
But it's also easy, I think, to get caught up in saying, well, if I don't have all that, I give all that up, I give all this up, then I'll be happy. I think that can be a trap too.
Yeah, because that could just be as like an escapism. You know, it's like, you know, a lot of the unhoused people, they deal with a lot of mental illness, you know, and a lot of addiction with alcohol and drugs, you know. So even if you do have that idea of I want to give everything away, it's all about our intention. You know, what are we doing it for? And the Buddha, like multiple times, says if you're to amass like the 7 precious treasures, whatever they are, or like our houses, our homes, our flowers, our waters, or whatever we want to offer, and fill it across the entire universe, like that's good. It's decent. But, you know, really understanding the interdependence of our existence and imbuing that interdependence with love and wisdom is so much more valuable. Because we're like I was telling this to Yumi like another day, we're like sticks of incense when we practice these things, when we bear these things in mind. Even if the room is stinky, we will still have an effect. It's like, another analogy is like dropping food coloring into water. Even if the water is dirty, the water will still change color in some way or another, right? If the water is clean, even better. If our atmosphere is clean, the incense will smell that much more beautiful, right? But no matter who we come across, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, if we're maintaining a mind that is in tune with what the Prajnaparamita Vajrachatika Sutra is talking about, which is love and wisdom together like 2 wings of a bird, and we're soaring through Food King or through Walmart or at our jobs with that sort of spirit, it'll be felt. People will see you and will feel more calm. That happened to me when I was in college. Like I don't know how this happened, but like I was just like doing my own thing and working, and one of my colleagues like just comes up to me randomly, and it's like, whenever you're around, like I just feel like so calm. And it's like, I don't know how that is. Like, I'm neurotic. I make a lot of raunchy jokes. Like, my sense of humor is weird. Like, I'm loud. I don't know how that's possible. But that person was able to witness my qualities in that way, you know? And so even though, like, we're, at least speaking for myself, like, I'm like, oh man, I could be better, blah, 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 blah. We have so much self-doubt and self-criticism. If we're trusting our practice and trusting our path, people will see us and will appreciate us. Even if we just give them a smile as we're passing by, like that's powerful, And that's what being unsupported means, of like not looking for a benefit, not looking for like a detriment to anything, but just bearing witness to our surroundings and offering what we can while we're witnessing, Okay.
I think we should be careful too about our generosity.
Oh yeah.
You said the intent. Why?
Mm-hmm. And is it even good for the other person?
That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And that's a thing. Like one of the Zen teachers at the Zendo said this one time, that like morality is like playing in the mud. It's not quite as black and white as we think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where like the idea of skillful means comes into play, upaya, of of wanting to help someone, but what method do I use? If I do give this person something, will that just enable them to ask me again later? Will they not be able to gain independence? Or will they use that to better themselves? That's really hard to figure out.
It is, and it's sometimes you can overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe to a good point, but sometimes you do it for yourself. Like, why am I doing this? Do I want to feel better about it or about something?
Yeah.
There's so many questions, and I get tired of it too. I'm tired of thinking about it. I'm tired of it.
And that's where the cushion is really nice. If like, I think the last 4 lines of the sutra are really powerful. Of seeing all fleeting worlds as a star of dawn, bubble into the stream, flash of lightning, flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. If you just say those 4 lines and sit in meditation, oof, you'll see all your thoughts as the fleeting world, because they're always coming and going. We can't, at least I could hold on to this little stick. I can't hold on to my stupid thoughts. They're so immaterial and ephemeral, and yet they have so much power. Are you kidding me? And so like not being dependent on those things is really nice. So like just sitting in that place of, that's why I prefaced it with like that space of not knowing, of not needing to figure anything out, is really nice. It's so liberating. It feels like taking a shower for your mind.
That's a good way to put it. Let me ask you, have any of you heard, I think I've read it somewhere here, about being generous, this merit. It's best to practice anonymously. Have I misread that or misheard that? Because we can't be really too sure of why we do it. If we're going to be generous for whatever, something small, grand, what we should do it almost secretly. Did I read that wrong? Have you heard anything like that?
It's from the text, so you're grabbing it from.
Somewhere I've read it or come across it because of those reasons. Because we can't be sure sometimes of our own intent, because we don't really know ourselves that well, or very well. That if we're going to do something for a thing or for someone, then it's best to do it, quietly. Because sometimes we do something and we go, hey, good job, kudos to you, great, or even to ourselves, kudos to me. You know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm misreading that or if I misunderstood it.
Yeah, that's what I actually understood from the text. You know, when you're about merit, right? Your intentions to give, making sure that you're not doing it just for selfless reasons. Even the walking the path, the righteous path, right? That could even be a form of attachment. That's what I understood there.
Yeah,
So,
and the Buddha says so himself, like, my teaching is a raft. You know, once you get to the other shore, don't drag it along with you. That's just some extra weight. And someone needs to cross the river, so may as well send it back, right? And, you know, I think the Buddha also says, like you're saying, Francisco, about, you know, being, what is it? Untainted by merit, or like unmotivated by merit, in their process of generating merit. You know, that's where the idea of dedication comes into play. You know, we do that at the end of each of our sessions. We dedicate the merit, you know.
Not to ourselves, but to the greater enlightenment.
Yeah. Like Lama Lina puts it, like, if you are, you know, really driven by gaining merit just for yourself, it's like this little thing, right? And I'm just holding it and I'm gaining my merit, and it's like, ooh, this is mine. And then once, like, one moment of anger or one moment of like jealousy or pride or like lustful desire comes out, and my equilibrium is lost, I just spill all my merit out, you know, and it becomes useless. But if I take the little merit that I do make on a daily basis and like pour it into the ocean of merit for all beings, there's no way that it could be lost, you know, because it is for the benefit of everyone else. It's not for me. And I think, like, what you're saying in terms of like keeping your generosity low key helps that process, you know, because like you're saying, it could be hard to suss out what we're really thinking unless we've cultivated mindfulness and awareness to such a point where we're able to see what we're thinking about. But, you know, I think another way of looking at it is when we are practicing generosity or discipline or every other perfection, not to gain anything back from it. I think that's the one thing that we're so used to in our culture, where it's like, you scratch my back, you scratch mine, you know, tit for tat, you know, eye for an eye. That one's more vengeful, but you know, that's like equivalent exchange. That's even kind of baked into our scientific thinking. And so, yeah, that could be pernicious, because that's still building the house of self, of gain and loss, you know. And, yeah, another way of looking at it, if someone does like insult you, throws shit on your walls of your house, you're gonna be pissed, right? But the Buddha says to himself, if you don't mind being hated on, if you don't mind it, all your previous karma will disappear, you know? You will be a better person for it, you know? So if you don't have a house, if someone tries to throw shit on your walls, where is it gonna land? Yeah.
So, I mean, I look at a lot of like constant battle and identifying, but like you said, you know, making sure that you're gonna do a generous act, you know, not doing it for selfish reasons. You have a thinking about, you know, doing things anonymously, and also, I guess I see that as maybe helping yourself kind of check where you're at as well, you know, in terms of your intentions. But it does feel like I don't know if like a constant battle against your ego, you know, because it's just gonna get in between the cracks, you know, and sometimes you don't even see it coming. Like if I let's say, if you have a partner, you know, all of a sudden you want to love that person, you know, so much, loving someone and not really falling in the trap that you will, and not them actually giving soul rather than taking.
Right.
And, I don't know if I explained myself that way.
Yeah, I think the Buddha says this in the sutra at some point. If a bodhisattva understands no self and no dharma as a true self and no dharma, there are true bodhisattvas or something to that effect. It's not like the ego is necessarily terrible. It's just a necessary illusion of our existence, right? But it's the ego clinging of being self-interested, self-centered, self-absorbed that creates suffering for ourselves and others. But if it's more in tune with interdependence, with wisdom and love, with that realm of emptiness, then when you're loving someone or you're being generous to someone, you're not doing it for you. You're actually bearing witness to the qualities of the other person that you're falling in love with. And it's like, damn, like my partner, she's very playful, she's really creative, and she's very, very motivated. Like, I rejoice in those qualities, and I want to replicate those in me because those are virtuous, you know. And so if it were just like, oh, I just want to get my rocks off, I just find this person really attractive, like let's do the do or whatever, that's, you know, that's basically looking out for my own pleasure. But if I want to offer pleasure to my partner, if I want to, you know, praise their good qualities, then that's a different feeling to it, right? That's like really honoring their humanity, you know.
Like a reflection of you, not really asking something in return. It's
Yeah.
just giving the love that I have that is mine, rather than what you have.
Right, yeah. Yeah, because you're more in tune of like, oh yeah, this person isn't just what I think of them either, you know. They have so much more of their life that I have no access to. You know, when I look at your face, I'm not the Buddha, so I can't tell what you're thinking, what your past experiences are, you know. I could only know who you are based off what you show me. And, you know, I like what you're showing me, and, you know, I want to get to know you more. And so that's not based off of, you know, making some.
Sorry about that.
Hi.
Is Ricardo here by chance?
Ricardo, no, I don't think so.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
I guess have a good day. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it's all good.
Get the name right? Are you sure? Maybe describe it. What did
Yeah,
Ricardo look like?
let me double check.
Because do you guys know Ricardo? You guys are kind of like unfamiliar.
Yeah, no,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
sorry.
yeah, no, it's Ricardo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, guess he's not here today.
Hey.
Oh, okay.
Ricardo Sarah.
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, no worries. Have a good
We'll swing
day.
by some of this.
Yeah. So that was an example. I don't know if you guys caught it, but they were wearing their shoes in here, and I was like, ooh, you know. So like, you know, that's like an instance of like confronting myself, you know, of like seeing my biases arise as they're arising, and being like, oh, they're just looking for someone. Like, I don't know Ricardo.
Yeah.
So
Ricardo is.
yeah, I wonder who he is. I hope they find him.
Yeah.
Ricardo is probably the gentleman that does acupuncture. Richie?
Oh, true, huh? Yeah, he's not here right now either. So those are the dues. But what were we talking about?
We talk about the giving and seeing someone as they are, you know, your partner.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
relationships, which are the most powerful things in our lives.
Mhm.
Sometimes they can be difficult to navigate
Yeah.
with this idea of with our practice,
Mhm.
because to me, and I'm an extremist. You know, our practice says just let it all go, let things go, let people go, just let it all go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, but I'm a good American. I like this. I like that. You know, we are taught, we live in a world that is very difficult to navigate these things and find that balance of whatever it is, whether it's relationships or relationships with work, families, or whatever. It's, at least it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like the middle way is really important here, you know, because like the Buddha, like, at no point said that you should just get rid of everything that you have. You know, it's just like, don't be so attached to your thoughts. But if your idea of being a good American helps you like help other people when they need help, or, you know, loving yourself and others, then that's perfect. That, like, you don't have to take so much stock in it either, or like see it like, ooh, like I'm defiled, because the Buddha says himself, like, you can't depend on dharmas or no dharmas. Like, you have to be beyond those two extremes, you know. But we need to work with them in terms of conventions, right? Of being able to understand our place in the world, to understand the teachings of the Buddha itself, you know. Like, we need that context. It may be illusory. The Buddha may say, like, I'm not teaching anything, but it sure as hell reads as if he is. And that's okay. Like, we need that. We need that illusion so that we could practice with it. You know, we need the words to go beyond the words. You know, we need, you know, the conventions to go beyond them. We need the methods to get to the wisdom. Yeah. And so it's fine, you know. That's why I'm saying, like, ego is not necessarily a bad thing. It's what we do with it. Whether it's oriented based on ourselves only, if our scope is so narrow that, you know, we don't care about the woman who was found in the dumpster. I'm assuming it's a woman.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. Or like the people dying in Gaza and Lebanon, Iran, or, you know, Myanmar, wherever people may be dying. You know, if we just like, no, you know, they don't matter. I'm the only thing that matters. I'm the only thing that matters. That's a terrible ego, right? But like, you know, actually, like, you know, feeling the pain in our hearts for people that are suffering in the world and in our communities, and to want to, you know, do something about it, the small little things that we could do about it, that's powerful, you know. Because even the biggest trees starts with a tiny seed, you know. Even the biggest mountains are made of tiny dust particles, you know. And so any small particle of bodhicitta that we have, it's stronger than an atomic bomb. You know, it could do wonders for the world. That's what I believe anyway. Oh yeah, thank you guys. It's nice to see you. It's been so long. We're just about done though.
That's okay. I came late, but I came to hear something that was important, so I needed to hear it.
Oh, I'm glad you came.
Thank you. It's been a long time.
And I hope you come again. We're having Sakadawa celebration tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll try my best to come.
Yeah, please do. And so page 60, we'll do the bodhicitta prayer and dedication of merit, and the small little thing in the bottom, just once in English and Tibetan. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Jangchub samchog rinpoche maje banam jejerejik cheba nyamba mebayang gongne gongdu belwara sho. Through this virtuous action, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead every being without exception into that pure world. Gewadi nirdudag lama zanje drubjurne drowa jigyang malupa deyi zala gobara jo. at this very moment for the peoples and nations of the earth. May not even the names disease, famine, war, and suffering be heard, but rather may pure conduct, merit, wealth, and prosperity increase, and may supreme good fortune and well-being always arise. Thank you so much, Oma Hong, for being here. And thanks for the Dharma for bringing us together, and for my glorious teachers. If I said anything wrong, as always, I apologize from the depths of my heart. And as always, we depend on generosity to keep the doors open and the AC running. So if you're able to offer anything at all, so be it. But your presence here is generous as it is, and you all are precious. So thank you very much for existing. And tomorrow we have Sakadawa, which I said at the beginning is the celebration of the Buddha's birth, of his enlightenment, and his death, all wrapped up in one. So we'll be doing a Shakyamuni Buddha Puja, so more ritual mantra recitation type of a beat, which is really fun. I enjoy that type of practice. So I hope to see you guys tomorrow if you're able to make it, but if not, thank you so much either way. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for teaching
Yeah.
your time and your effort.
Oh, of course. It's a pleasure.